fantastic guest for you today, and this is going to be a real fun one for me. It's someone who I have a fun friendship and a work relationship with. We'll get into that in a minute. Have with us on the line the great, the powerful, the wonderful Mr. Retired Army Colonel, Soldier for Life, Colin Wright. He's also the director, Mid-Atlantic Director for Advocate Health Advisors, and he's the author of a new book, which I'm going to refer to lovingly as a field manual called Veticare. We'll get into that and all sorts of wonderful stories here in just a minute. But first, because it's the Lima Charlie show, we'll do a fun little radio check. Sir, this is Rob. How do you read me? Over.
I read you Lima Charlie how me.
5 by 5, the old fashioned 5 by 5. You haven't heard that in a while.
Oh,
Yeah, get your Lima
oh
Charlie,
yeah.
sir.
Oh yeah.
This is real fun. Right off the top of the hour here, we'll just disclose there for fun. We have a work relationship. I don't talk about work too much on the air, but you and your group specifically is helping folks with Medicare, and you have a special program for veterans and families with Medicare. And we're going to get into all of those details. It's going to be really fun. But before we do that, sir, if you could, let's do a little bit of time traveling. Walk through what for you was the decision, what was the path, what were the circumstances that led you to want to join the military? And specifically, why you chose the branch that you did, the MOS and the career path. I'm really curious on those details.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. I've looked at all your guests, and I'm a little humbled to be amongst the crew that's been here before me. Grew up in a small town in North Carolina, Marshville. Not many people know about that, but a little tiny town, about 35 miles outside Charlotte. And we didn't have a lot, so if I was going to have, I had to do. And I think I started working at an early age at a hog farm at like 12 and, other jobs. And when I went to college, um, I had one scholarship, but it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks of, this is going to run out soon. My brother had been a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps and then later transferred over to C-130s. So we had a veteran that I had always looked up to. So I decided that I was going to go in the military. And I was leaning towards the Marine Corps, I think probably just because of my brother. And my brother had a long talk with me. And he said, look, here's one thing I would recommend. Um, there's a lot more jobs, a lot more potential for advancement. I think you'll have more fun in the Army. And I think that blessing from him of you don't have to do exactly what I'm going to do, that sort of opened up me to look at all the branches. And I don't think Air Force or Navy, had the draw to me that what the Marines and Army do. And now that I've been, decades down the road in that, I see how close the missions were and several things that I've done. And it was closer for the Marines and with other things. But started with that in '85 as an enlisted soldier. And we were talking about this yesterday. I actually could have, if I'd have taken a little time to run down a transcript, gone to basic training as an E3, but I went as an E1 and got promoted for the BRM high score there, and then went to AIT, came back. And when I was an NCO, I got commissioned as a second lieutenant into military police corps,
Yeah,
straight out of OBC. As a matter
I
of fact,
love that.
they pulled me out maybe 3 days early in OBC to head to the Gulf. It was August 2 of '90, sort of changed everything there for the landscape. And I was not alone in the people who may have looked at joining the military back then for the educational opportunities because we hadn't been in a real big engagement for quite some time at that point. It got real and maybe ran some people off. It got real to me, and I said, okay, this is what we've been practicing for. This is a Super Bowl. So, it didn't turn out to quite be a Super Bowl. It was a fairly short engagement with a lot of prep. But the one thing it did give me as a second lieutenant is I got to see the whole machine from hey you to see you later. And that was an invaluable experience. And went on from that, picked up a second branch as transportation, learned so much from those guys. For one, that MP was very different than transportation, but it gave me that background behind the whole model again. And 9/11 came around. It took a couple branch and material positions because we didn't want to sit home. When something like that happened, it was like we were one of the first ones to say, "Hey, I'll go somewhere." So spent about 3 years in and around the Pentagon for that. Then came back and got picked up um, by a CID guy that just walked through, saw a combat patch, which was, at that time was rare,
Right.
and asked me if I want to be an S3, which of course all majors would want to be an S3. So I said yes, and that sort of formed the last 16, 17 years of my career. Went to Army CID, and I stayed there for the vast majority of time. Got to do a couple of really cool, unique things, and I'm very happy that I got the experience to do with developing and implementing the battlefield forensics program in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then later, my last assignment on active duty is I was the commander of the terrorism investigations unit. And
Mm.
then a little brief stint in the reserves to sort of come across the finish line there, and that's the whole time machine.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how your brother gave you the straight scoop and he's like, look, this is going to be more fun. He even used the word fun. A little bit more
Yeah.
fun. Just a little bit.
Oh, he had me terrified. I think I went to boot camp in better shape than I left. I was working like 3 hours a day for like 6 months, and we got
Wow.
there, and I was like, "Oh, this is all we're going to do." And I mean, Lord, I'm glad I didn't say that. We got smoked, 50 times worse. But I was like, "Okay, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be."
And I love that, I spent a lot of time in, so my tour in Iraq, gosh, 20 years ago now. I was surrounded by some incredible NCOs and officers, battalion headquarters. A lot of my friends, it's every rank of it's just beautiful assortment of rank. And I have to say, I'm a little bit biased towards what I call my Mustangs. You were enlisted first, then you became an officer,
Yeah,
and that's rare. There's nothing against, it's more rare, and I do think it helps. You see, like you said, you see the whole picture,
yeah.
but you also you knew what the job was, and then you saw the bigger picture. And I do think in management of any organization that's important. It's important to see that. So,
Yeah, I think as a new officer, second lieutenants, they make the mistake of they're in send mode right out of the gate. And some are in send mode really heavily because maybe they're inside, maybe a little insecure about what they just got put in front of them. A group of 40, 50 people. You're the youngest one there for 75% of them. And it really helps to have been in receive mode and send mode and back and forth, and get to have some time to just see how military leadership runs, which is not that different than corporate leadership. The wonderful company I work with now, it's veteran owned and operated, and it runs very much like a division or a brigade headquarters.
yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. We'll get into that, and another wonderful better we'll speak of kindly in a few moments. So yeah, it's yeah, you learn so much in the military about leadership, organizational structure, all of it. I'm wondering in your travels, because you did a couple tours there, you were in multiple units, you were on both sides of the house, right? Enlisted and commissioned. I'm wondering if there's one prevailing lesson, or maybe a leader, that still to this very day um, has stayed impactful to you. Good or bad lessons, good or bad leaders. And of course, you were a leader yourself, but I'm wondering if something or someone made an impression there that even today kind of still affects the way you tackle problems or look at your next mission.
I do. I probably have several. Gosh, there's been so much interaction, so many people to learn from. Um, I think some of the senior NCOs that really took me aside and said, "Hey, and I tried to be approachable where somebody would feel comfortable saying this to me." Said, "Look, we've seen a lot of you guys come and go. Here's what the guys did that did a good job. Here's what the guys did that just floundered." And getting that honest feedback, whether it was, my drill sergeant from basic training that pulled me aside and had a word with me about why I was in the reserves and that I needed to go active, which I was very happy with, or the AIT NCO that was there. I think very early on that they established, this is the way we do business. We don't beat around the bush. We don't give confusing guidance to develop your inner creative self. We have a very, step-by-step method we do this. Here's the manual, go make it happen. And it literally was that simple. Um, you're not doing anything in the military that's not been done before, unless you happen to be incredibly lucky, which I got to be once in 34 years. And I actually weren't first, we were second. It was done in World War II also. But there's been somebody do it, critique it, write that critique down, sort for patterns in the critique, and then put it back out to you in, a Center for Army Lessons Learned document, the call documents. So I think just learning early on that, you don't have to come in here knowing everything. You have to come in here willing to listen to senior NCOs that will not lead you astray, and you have to be able to read and interpret and then apply.
Right. Yeah. We used to call it kukumu, clear understanding, concise understanding,
Yes.
mutual understanding. Yeah,
Yes. So, and I had some great leaders along the way. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to probably three of the well, I'll give you four of the best generals I ever worked for, and I'll just start by rank. Lieutenant General Quantock, who was the only military police officer ever to make it to 3-star in our nation's history.
Wow.
I had the distinct pleasure of working with him. He was the commander as the OPMG, the Office of the Provost Marshal General, and top cop in the Army. And when I was at the Terrorism Investigation Task Force, so I got the opportunity to work with him. Later, we asked him to come back and do my boss's retirement ceremony. It was a wonderful ceremony. And back in my other hat, I was embraced and supported so much by three generals in particular that allowed us to do something that had never been done before. We created an entire training program around agents built by the warrant officers, the things that they needed to do. We called it annual special agent training. It just sounded like it would be terrible if you canceled it, if you defunded it, because it was annual special agent training. And I think General McQueen, General Holman, and General Churn probably had to be three of the biggest supporters I had during that entire thing. And I can't help but give a shout out to Colonel Byron Freeman, who is also one of my biggest advocates. I had somebody really, kind of, what's a nice way to say it? He was like crapping on my plan one day. And I kind of lost it, because when you got something you put that much into, and I was young, I would have sort of let that go now. But he kept needling me about, why do we need to do this stuff? Nobody's ever done it before. And this was one of those folks that did not listen to his NCOs, and he was just kind of, everything was in here, and that's where the decisions were going to be made. None of this, none of these. And we took a break very shortly after I let him know exactly what I thought we needed to do this stuff. So, and Colonel Freeman came over and he put his arm around me. He said, "Hey, you can't say stuff like that in an open meeting anymore. But I love you. You remind me of me 20 years ago. You keep doing you. Just don't say stuff like that to me." So that's, just memorable people that impacted you and supported you, and just let you make things happen. That ended up being an international exercise. It went from a weekend with 4 units to a complete international exercise and a line item in the budget. And we had 5 international countries attend it at one point.
Wow. That's incredible.
Because those guys, they just said, "Yeah, we'll support you. Let's see how it works."
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah. So you had lots of lessons learned, lots of leaders, lots of huge wins, and lots of frequent flyer miles as well.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, and that hasn't stopped.
That's true.
Think,
That's true. So
I think the
talk
rate I'm
about,
traveling now, I've been doing
yeah.
since
So let's talk about
2006.
let's talk about the transition then. So when you knew it was kind of time, um, what was the thought process? Was there an actual plan? Did you have some career thoughts, or
Sure.
how did that
Sure.
transition go for you?
Yeah, there were plans that quickly got disrupted by what I'm doing now, because we did get exposed to some really interesting things that our country can do. And people are always so paranoid that, somebody's listening to it. Nobody could care less, what you're buying in the grocery store or whatever. But I did learn a lot about the intelligence community. It fascinated me. And there's one particular group where I knew I would be overseas, and one particular group where I knew I would be at home. So I wanted to work with the group where I would be at home, and kind of already had a house picked up in the area. And then our CEO, founder, Dr. Colonel retired Dr. Darwin Hale, uh, he and I got to talking about, his veterans initiative. It had been going for years before I got there, but it was still fairly at a kind of a level starting state. And we talked about that. And although I didn't know anything about sales, I didn't know anything about insurance. I was curious. I wanted to learn, and I got my license, and I helped a guy before I even started with the company. And I gotta say, there's probably a little divine intervention there, because as far as dollars impacted on someone and changing their life, in over 10 years now, I have not found anybody that I made that much impact with. So I think I
Mm,
met Frank for a reason very early on.
sure. Yeah, so let's just take a minute if you don't mind, because not all of our listeners are familiar. Because like I said, you and I have a work relationship. I do this, especially this time of year. I help people with their Medicare Advantage plans. I help people with, especially the veteran community, of course. But our listeners might not necessarily know much about the company itself and this
Sure.
initiative. So would you mind kind of getting into the weeds a little bit for folks that are completely unfamiliar?
Sure, sure. And this is the time of year to talk about that. Advocate Health Advisors is a veteran-owned and veteran-operated company. We turned 20 this June, and we work in the Medicare space. That is typically 65 and older. However, there are a significant amount of veterans that may qualify under age 65 under certain circumstances. And what we do is we'll help people make their decisions about what Medicare product they want to enroll into. We've got thousands of agents across the nation, all 50 states and Puerto Rico. And the one thing that I do within the company, which is a chance to speak about you a little bit, Rob, is I run the Veticare initiative. And full disclosure, Veticare, totally made up word. We just thought about veterans benefits, Medicare benefits, smashed it together, actually trademarked the word.
Mhm.
And we run a certification program. And, for those of you listening that need someone to assist you with a Medicare decision, Rob is one of less than 700 agents in the nation that carry that Veticare certification. And it's not an easy certification to get. We require 100% on the test to pass. And not a lot of people are willing to put that work in as a Medicare broker, because as a Medicare broker, you need to know one system. As a Veticare broker, you need to know that same system, Medicare, but then you need to know VA, Champ VA, TRICARE, how they interact, how they don't interact. And it takes a unique person that will take on learning four systems for one enrollment, and that's you. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, I appreciate the shout outs. I'm also, I'd be remiss if not mention my sister and producer Meg is also certified. And
yes,
we've been
yes.
sitting with so many folks because the whole reason I even started to add on, I have a full-time practice, investment advisory practice here in Buffalo. But what I kept seeing over and over and over again was so many people that really thought they had certain benefits or coverage that didn't.
Yeah,
And then I saw some people that had more than they probably needed. And
yeah.
just analyzing that from even just a financial viewpoint is one thing, but to really think of the problems that came out, especially during the pandemic. So what really
Oh
led
yeah.
me into this, I didn't do insurance at all until just a few years ago, and it was really because of the pandemic. I had so many clients, I had so many friends, family. I'm upstate New York. We got hit really hard with that. We lost thousands of people to COVID, and then we had tens of thousands of people that were in nursing homes, ER rooms, all sorts of problems. That only when things settled did we start going through it and going, insurance should have carried that. Or what, so that's really why I got into it, because I was trying to understand more about this blind spot I had that was impacting everybody. And then to your point, once I discovered your company, I actually reached out, I reached out
I know
because
you found
I
us.
read the book that the founder had written, talking about his frustrations with the system when he was trying to help his mother, when the three of us we didn't know each other, but we were all overseas at the time, 20 years ago. And I read that book. I thought, oh my gosh, this group's actually working on this. And then I meet you, and you're a fantastic, better half there. And I see, holy cow, there's really a focus on helping veterans. So whenever I see that, as anyone knows, I'm all in. And I haven't looked back because and it's not a financial, if I want to make more money, I'll just, I just invest. But this is actually helping people, and it's making a huge difference. And it overwhelmingly, the majority of people that I sit with, for these, when you're helping someone save $100 a month or what have you, or maybe paying a little bit more than they were planning to, but having the coverage they need that will save them in the long run. To your point about the first gentleman you helped, Frank, it really does. It just gives you. It's almost like you're fighting the system, and
Yeah,
you've helped someone navigate it. And I don't know. It's a very good reward. It's a personally gratifying feeling to do that. And in my viewpoint, the demand is just going up. There's more and more demand for people that understand the stuff, and there's less of us doing it. I didn't realize there
there
was only
is.
700 in the country, but there is there's not enough people to
No,
supply the demand.
no, we're
And
trying to
I'm
scale it.
glad, yeah. So
Well, and every
I'm
veteran
glad
that
you
can
mentioned it.
sit
I
down.
appreciate the shout. I don't really typically talk about work, but it is fascinating, which is why I really wanted to get
Yeah,
the word out on this. And and if you don't mind, I just picked up your book.
yeah, it's out
So
a couple days now.
it's already ranking up there. Your book, if
I
you don't
was
mind.
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I picked up on Veterans Day. It was my first task of the morning when I got up. I was like,
went
hey,
out on
let's
Veterans
do
Day. Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I'm going to
So,
call that a field manual. But if you want to talk about that, and any
it
listener would be fascinated by this.
yeah, it's written like a field manual, and it became apparent to me after not too long at Advocate that nobody else was doing this because military guys. I said it earlier. Your chances are you're not doing something someone else has done. There's a manual, there's a critique, there's a roll up of the critiques. There wasn't anything like that for this. There was, the godfather of this whole program. Fred started this a long time ago. Uh, God bless him, he's no longer with us. But Fred started the Veterans Initiative with one of our carrier partners, and they had their heart in the right place with it. They needed an execution arm to make this stuff happen, and Advocate was chosen. And I was chosen to come on board after it was stabilized and up and running to make it better. And we've done that. We have made a lot of impact in the last decade, and I mean in the hundreds of thousands helped and assisted when you count the veterans and the spouses, and that's just such a feel good. Um, you'll hear our boss say that profits are kind of the oxygen we need to breathe, and the company has a bigger mission just than to make profit. And when you read his book, I'm sure that came out because I don't know anybody that's as forward thinking on the general healthcare outcomes of our nation than Darwin. And
Right.
he has spent a
Agreed.
tremendous amount of time engaging with policymakers, politicians, elected officials to make sure they understand clearly what we do. Because that was another thing we noticed. There's a very clear misunderstanding, and especially misunderstanding of the veterans integration of the veterans benefits and the civilian benefits. And that's why I don't think it's ever a bad call for someone to sit down with someone like you that has that knowledge base, because there are a significant portion of veterans that will say, look, you're doing everything right. You're using this, and then you get this, and then this. Yep, probably don't need that, but keep it for a little bit, see if you do. And don't change a thing. And they'll kind of look at you and say, you're not trying to sell me something? No. So I'm trying to educate you on how to
Yeah.
use your benefits. And you happen to have made a right choice, but now you know exactly why that's the right choice. And here's my card. Don't let anybody talk you out of that choice you've made because you made the right one. And
Yeah.
even if we don't change anything, it's beneficial just to let a set of eyes look at it to validate what you've chosen to do. But many times we do find sometimes there's life saving uh, things that we can put into play for someone.
Yeah, I find that I am somewhat of an unsales person in that regard. I sometimes say, well, you don't really need that, but this is probably the better option for if you do need coverage.
Because you're honest and you care.
Yeah, well, it's also just the long-term math. I'm always looking, as an investor, first and foremost, I'm like, what's the long term on this?
Yeah.
What's the risk and reward of this? And I guess the one thing I've learned the most common that happens with the veteran community specifically is that some of them don't think they need to even deal with Medicare, and a lot of them don't go for Part B, which if down the road there's an issue with if there's a
Yeah.
penalty. That surprised me, and
That is such a mistake,
yeah,
in my opinion. I have never met anyone that I said, yeah, you shouldn't take your Part B. And they get told that all the time. And this is no way, a smear against these organizations as a whole.
mm,
But we have had people at Social Security tell veterans, you got the VA, you don't need to do your Part B.
yeah,
We've had the VA say, you got us, you don't need Part B. We've had service officers say, hey, you're 100% permanent total. You probably don't need to activate your Part B. And, even if it's just a scattered few amongst the thousands that are out there, that's not a good message because at some point in time, that VA user may decide that they want something closer or quicker or a specialist that may not be associated with the VA through the Choice Program, also known as the Mission Act, or they may want an outside second opinion. And you're exactly right. If they figure that out past their enrollment window, they start getting a 10% penalty, and it's a lifetime penalty for every 12-month block they stay out.
yeah,
Now, I will give a huge shout out to Christina Longro, who works with us.
yeah,
Christina has gone to her Congressman Rushenthaler in Pennsylvania, Navy veteran, and we've gotten it through Congress, and it's going to the Senate soon, and it will remove the Part B penalty for veterans.
yeah,
So we're super excited about that. We currently have 22,000 veterans paying that Part B penalty nationally,
yeah,
and countless others that we're just not tracking because they didn't activate it. They didn't say, "Yeah, I'll pay the penalty."
yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to helping tons of veterans with that one.
Yeah, what Christina's done, and it's not a surprise that the gentleman she worked with is a veteran also, but
Oh yeah,
yeah, getting that done is huge. I mean, I just helped someone just actually Thursday, just this past week that has gone, I think, 5 years where they should have done it, and they're doing it now. But like you said, that's a 10% penalty.
yeah.
It's and that goes on for years. So yeah, so I learned that, and then the other thing that I come across a lot is the spouses. They're God love our veterans and God love our auxiliary members, but sometimes we're not in the same room when we're making these decisions that impact our families.
You're exactly right, and
The vet goes with the VA, and then there's,
yeah.
there's two different decision makers, and that sometimes is costing collectively the household money and loss of coverage. So that's the
Oh,
other thing I've noticed.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I always try and have that spouse present. And if the veteran can't be present, I'll be honest with you, I'd really rather speak with a spouse because spouses a lot of times are making these decisions. If you think about a veteran that's picked up and deployed, 6 or 7 times, there's somebody running that household when you're gone. And that's one
Hmm.
of the things they always talk about during reintegration. Don't come in there and try and change everything right out of the bat. So those spouses have sort of supersized their role in that relationship from time to time. And veterans appreciate that so much. I mean, I hope we all articulate that to our spouses, how much we appreciate their sacrifice. Because I used to say, soldiers enlist, families re-enlist. But when I can talk to that spouse, I'm also talking to somebody that has a better connection with that veteran than I do, of course. So I'm a huge proponent of either speaking to both of them together or even just speaking to the spouse if I can.
Yeah, yeah. Household six is definitely
Oh yeah,
the most important rank in the in the
yes.
military.
I don't care what's on your collar; it changes when you cross the door
That's
or
right.
pick up the phone. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
even geographic anymore; it's virtual.
yeah, yeah. So, well, that's fantastic. Well, like I said, the book is. I mean, I know you worked hard on it, obviously, and it's a great field source. So, folks that are new to Medicare, folks that are veterans that are contemplating how they're going to integrate or retired military. TRICARE for life. Someone disabled early on, still in the service. CHAMP VA. All these different elements. Uh, it's not a surprise to me that our government has developed all these different things and they don't talk to each other. But I love how you kind of said, in a sense, here's the flow chart, here's the order of operations, here's the SOP.
Yeah.
So I feel like everyone that not only may be looking at Medicare for their own family, but there's a lot of professionals out there that might even work at the VA that could find this manual very helpful. And there's folks that help military transition and retire out. There's Soldier for Life. This is a huge
Yeah.
program. I had a guest on speaking of that not too long ago. This book should be in their hands also as part of the preparation for retirement. So you did a fantastic job with it.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, I picked it up online, but what's the preferred source that folks should go to pick up a copy of? I mean,
Well, if you, yeah, perfect. If you go to theveticarebook.com and Vetecare, just the way you spell veteran,
right?
because when we look for the word Veticare, I think I probably had some epiphany during grilling or something. Um, I called our tech guy, said, "Hey, Josh, can you look for Veticare?" And he came back and said, "Ah, it's taken." I said, "Well, how are you spelling it? VETI, VETE, VETA?" He said, VETI. I said, "Okay, well, that's the animal people anyway. See about E." And he called me and said, "Yeah, Veticare is available." So we trademarked it, have Veticare.net, have Veticare app on the Apple Store
Okay.
and on Google Play. But the book particularly, and it'll all link you back in. They're all associated. If you want to look at it, it's the Veticare, Vetecare, theveticarebook.com. And there's an order link on that. Still fairly new at publishing, so I think I've got it on Amazon and Lulu for bulk now. Um, and I'll add other outlets, but the one place we will center all the outlets is on the veticarebook.com.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll be shipping out some folks locally that I know will find this as a good user manual. Plus the agents that I work with here at the office. So that's fantastic, sir. I appreciate that. Um, now I do want to ask you about forgive me, how long ago did you retire? What year?
June of 2015.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah.
Oh, no, hang on. September.
Yeah.
September.
Yeah.
September 2015. Then I had a little time in the reserves there and just finished
Right.
out.
Yeah. So you're really just in your first. I like to have fun with this a little bit because there's so much training and the military and the government has spent so much time developing how to figure out, and we do it successfully, how to take a teenager and turn them into a soldier or a service member. But it's only in our era, really, of service, our GWAT generation. It's only in ours that we're really starting to kind of put the efforts into how to help folks go from service member to a veteran. And I like
Right.
to use the phrase that becoming a veteran is a lifelong process. So you're only in your first, forgive me, a little bit of liberty here with our friendship, but you're only 10 years in. You're like a little
Yeah.
kid in your in your
Yeah.
transition. So I'm just curious, is there something for the folks out there now listening who are where you were 10 years ago that you think would be something you want to share with them, some type of tip
Sure.
or advice? Because and time changes, right? We're not in the world we were in 10 years ago. I mean, that's just how it is. But if someone's retiring now and they don't know what their next thoughts are beyond the service, do you have any guiding light for them, sir?
I do. First one is embrace change. You absolutely have to embrace change because the only thing that's constant is change. And the other thing is don't let anybody talk you out of it. I had two times in my military career where we were told that we probably couldn't do something. And one time the person even quoted this serenity prayer to me, like, have the wisdom to know what you can't change. And and it was someone that outranked me. And I said, "Well, sir, with all due respect, you're going to have the wisdom to see what I really can change, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it better. It's ever been done before." And we did. We were very successful. It's one of the times when Darwin and I really got to know each other. And I think that unbeknownst to me, for about 3 years when we served together, because we'd been in the same branch for decades, but we had about 3 years we worked really closely together. I guess it was a job audition, and I didn't realize it. So, but but he saw what we could do, and because something hadn't been done before, that wasn't an obstacle. That was a blank canvas. Tell me the left and right limit, tell me what resources, tell me what you want, and then let me do my thing. And I can't say enough about a hands-off boss that says, "Here's your left and right limits. Here's your resources. Do your thing."
Yeah.
He has given me so much artistic liberty, and you got to check in. It's a business. Make sure things are running properly. But he has supported me so much in this that we would not have helped nearly as many people if we had to do it with constraints that I see some of my peers in their second, third careers are, and they're not having fun. And I'm living a dream. It's like I don't even work. I have so much fun at work. So don't let anybody talk you out of it, and embrace that change. And progress, not perfection, is my
Uh-huh.
last one.
Yes,
A
yes.
baby step every day is better than sitting back watching it happen for a week and trying to sprint.
Yep.
So progress, not perfection.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate everything you're doing. Like I said, I mean it's fun. It's fun to have a guest on that I have an actual friendship with.
Oh, it's
We
an
formed
honor.
around the same time, and now we have a working relationship, especially this time of year. So, just everyone involved with that organization that I've dealt with, especially Household Six. I mean, she's
Oh,
perfect.
man, what a great group of people.
Perfect. Everybody top. It's just a great team. So I really appreciate your time and joining the show and going over this. I'm really proud of the work you did with this book, this field manual. I think that's going to help clarify a lot
You
of
got it.
things. There you go. Yeah, there you
That's
go.
it. Got to give a shout out to Lily. Lily Tuggle at the home office. She created what I've dubbed Vetiflage.
Nice.
So, and it came from, even though we think we're PowerPoint Rangers in the military, I saw some of
I haven't heard that in
Lily's
a while.
work. Oh, yeah. I see some of Lily's work, and I'd be, oh my God, this looks really good. And the recruiting brief that I would see Joanne go through, I um, I said, Lily, can you take my brief and make it look better? And boom, here comes this Vetiflage.
That's
And
awesome.
I loved it so much. I said, that's got to be on the book cover. And we got three more coming out before the end of the year, and they're going to be appropriately themed with a Champ VA, TRICARE for Life, and VA
Oh,
user
good. Okay.
workbooks. And wait for the Vetiflage on those. I'm excited about those too.
Yeah,
They'll be
that's
great
awesome.
and
Yeah,
full of good
I
content.
haven't heard the PowerPoint Ranger in a bit. When I was in, we'd have our battalion briefings, our bubs, and depending on, and please don't take offense, but depending on which new lieutenants or new
Oh,
E7 walked in the door, I'm like, oh, it's death by PowerPoint today. We're gonna
yeah.
have, you
Yeah,
know.
you'd think we're in the Air Force as many times as we heard somebody say, land the plane, Lieutenant. So it's land the plane. So,
Oh, see, those are the good memories, right? Those are the
oh,
those
yeah.
are the things that unite us all as the humor in the service. Well,
Oh,
I
yeah.
know we brought some.
Reading slides is one thing most veterans will never, ever get caught doing because I've seen it. It's like, hey, Lieutenant, I can read. Tell me about the slide. Don't read me the slide. And it causes like a twitch every time I see somebody like reading slides. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. But, and it just shows familiarity with material too. So
Yeah. Oh, that's a good time, sir. Those are good times.
love
So,
it.
well, my
Made us who we
fine.
are today.
Yeah, well, I do have just one final question, and we'll wrap up
Sure.
here.
Sure.
I do want to time travel one more time with you. Now that you've lived this incredible life of service, and now that you're a decade into your journey as a veteran, and you're helping so many and connecting with so many, right? This is how we met. I would just like to ask you to go back in time now for a minute or less to the conversation you had with your brother about this idea of yours of joining the service. And now I'd like to ask if you had just 1 minute or less to talk to your younger self on that day, what would you say to yourself about the future?
I would say take that advice. He has absolutely no reason to tell you anything other than something that would make you successful. Because my brother was older than me and kind of a father figure. So, you're young and you just think you know everything and you think that you've got it figured out. And I thought about that for a minute. I was like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. But I really let it sink in. I said, that he's never led me astray. Always, been my advisor on things like that. So lean in, and I did, but I just think I did so with a little too much angst or doubt. I would say lean in, 100%.
Excellent, excellent advice, sir. It's quite the gift that he gave you, quite the gift of service you both gave our country. And I'm honored and grateful for you and your entire family. So thank
Same
you.
here.
Thank you so much for your time today, sir. Folks, once again, I've been honored to sit and speak with fellow veteran and a soldier for life. That's the phrase everyone's been telling us. We got a soldier for life, retired Colonel Cullen Wright. And I would highly recommend you pick up a copy of his new book. In fact, if you're watching us online, there'll be a link underneath. If you want to go to the LimaCharlieShow.com, he is our honored veteran of the week. So his bio and the links are there. You can just click and pick up a few copies. Think about folks that would not just benefit from the book itself for their own family, but think of the professionals in your life that need to know this knowledge that impacts veterans and their families. So thank you again, sir. I greatly appreciate it. And I guess this is kind of fun. I get to say this to a guest. I guess I'll see you at work next week.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right, sir. Folks, stand by for a quick break and then we'll wrap up this week's show. Stand by. Okay.